right now on Fox 5 News at 10.
A simple piece of plastic that could save lives. Why they're not on New York buses. The latest inductee into our Hall of Shame. It is a simple device that some people say could save lives. So why don't we have them in New York? Tonight, Arnold Diaz investigates.
Shame, shame, shame. Imagine the horror of being crushed under the wheels of a bus. This year alone in New York City, 6 people have suffered that agonizing death. 81-year-old Eva Schweitzer, a Holocaust survivor, was killed in January.
My mother had at least 5 to 10 years of life ahead of her.
She was on her way to play cards with friends at the Riverdale Y, transferring buses, when something awful happened. A police detective broke the news to her son.
He said that your mother was apparently trying to get on the bus, and somewhere in the process, she either slipped or tripped or whatever, and she got run over by the rear wheel, and it's not a good idea for you to look at the body, because it's not in good shape.
In February, actor Richard Bright, best known for his role as a bodyguard in The Godfather, is hit by the rear wheel of a tour bus turning onto Columbus Avenue, dragged to his death. Just 2 days later, a woman crossing East 86th Street is hit by a city bus, fatally pinned beneath its wheels. In March, Anna Dimbert, another Holocaust survivor, was crushed to death by the rear wheels of a city bus while crossing the street in Brooklyn. And in July, another horrific accident. Gay Wiener hit by a City Express bus turning onto East 57th Street. Emergency workers used airbags to lift the bus and free her, but it was too late. Her death was the last straw for Michael Cohen, the chairman of a citizens committee that advises the MTA on pedestrian bus accidents. Angry and frustrated, he called Fox 5.
The woman probably did not have to die. This is something that we have been talking about now for over 2.5 years.
This is what they've been talking about, a safety device called the S1 Gard, a curved urethane shield which sits in front of the right rear wheel.
And what it does is it acts like a cow catcher and pushes the person away from the rear wheel.
The company's demonstration tape shows the S1 Gard pushing a stuntman out of the way of the rear wheel in a number of different scenarios. Someone running for a bus who trips and falls. A pedestrian hit by a turning bus and knocked to the ground. A skateboarder or bicyclist colliding with the side of the bus. And a passenger exiting the rear door who slips on the curb. Company rep Gordon Nevison says the device saves lives.
Now, that's not to say that the person wouldn't have some injuries, but they wouldn't roll underneath the rear wheel and be seriously injured or killed.
S1 Guards are now being used on buses in Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, Oakland, and Baltimore. Boston and New Jersey Transit are putting it on some of their buses. But you won't find the S1 Gard on any New York City buses, despite the efforts of the chairman of the MTA Advisory Committee.
I think it's definitely something that needs to be installed on every single bus. I believe every person on the board feels exactly the same.
The State Transportation Department and the MTA have known about the S1 Gard for years. Back in 2003, the company demonstrated it for them, and the DOT issued this report calling for a committee to make recommendations. So what did they decide? A state DOT spokesperson recently told Fox 5, "We're not prepared to make specific recommendations at this time to address this specific problem."
What's the major stumbling block at this point?
I don't know. Can't get a response. 2.5 years, no response. I think it's just red tape bureaucracy.
And it gets worse. The MTA has a testing program to try out new bus equipment under real conditions. But for years, it's refused to test the S1 Gard.
We've offered to provide them with test samples. The samples would be provided free, and all they have to do is follow this thing and test it.
The MTA says it examined the S1 Gard 4 years ago and found drawbacks, including limited ground clearance, potential steering problems from snow accumulation, and possible contact with curbs during turns. But the manufacturer says those fears are unfounded and have not been an issue in any cities using the S1 Gard.
It is working in L.A., it's working in Chicago, and it's working in Atlanta, it's working in Baltimore and Boston. the street conditions can't be any worse in New York than they are in some of those major cities.
The MTA also says there's no proof the S1 guards actually save lives. But a Washington, D.C. transit official told Fox 5, before we got the S1 guards, we had 2 fatalities a year. Since we started using the S1 guards, we've had only 1 fatality in the last 6 years. That's reason enough for New York City Transit to at least give it a try, says Cohen.
They should test it, they should get empirical data, they should use the data, and then formulate a real plan.
It would cost about $6 million to put S1 guards on all 4,500 New York City buses. Cohen says the city would save more than that from fewer lawsuits. The family of Eva Schweitzer has filed a wrongful death suit against the city. Jack Schweitzer had never heard of the S1 guard until we showed him pictures of it.
If there had been a device like this, maybe my mother might be alive to be here, but I'll never know that.
So into our Fox 5 Hall of Shame, we induct the New York State Transportation Department and the MTA for failing to fully investigate a device that could save lives.
Shame, shame, shame.
Since we began our investigation 2 months ago, there's been yet another death. A 43-year-old Brooklyn man hit by a city bus and crushed under its wheels. The chairman of the MTA's Citizens Advisory Committee says at its next meeting he'll be demanding that transit officials take another look at the S1 guard. If you've got a story idea for us, call us at 1-877-TEL-FOX-5 or go to our website, myfoxny.com, and click on Contact Us. I'm Arnold Diaz, Fox 5 News.